everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I am your host, John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 1997's Spawn and its brand new Arrow Video 4K Blu-ray. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about the film Spawn and you're just here for that 4K review, you guys can skip ahead right now. So back in 1997, Mark A. Z-Dippe, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, gave the world Spawn. And this is the very same year that we got one of the worst comic book films of all time in Batman and Robin, directed by Joel Schumacher. Well, unfortunately to a lot of people, Spawn is another great example of a very bad comic book film. Me and a few other people out there will disagree with that. Even the people who are in this movie, you know, they have a hard time defending it. And I guess that makes a lot of sense, because the movie itself, it might not be the very best made, but it does carry a lot of nostalgic feelings for me, and I do think that a lot of the people involved were giving it their all, and they do deserve their praise. And I'm going to shower some praise on this movie. This is based on the Todd McFarlane comic book, which was very popular at the time, which was a very dark comic. And that is kind of funny, because a few years earlier, we got 1994's The Mask, which is also based on a very dark comic book that they very successfully turned into a big blockbuster picture. They had Jim Carrey in the starring role, and they turned it more into a comedy film. So they probably thought, we can do that again with another comic book series, and that's how they ended up making Spawn. But apparently they had a lot of free reign, but you had to have it be a PG-13 film. But the comic itself was a very dark comic book, so when they transitioned it over to being a film, I just don't think it transitioned very well. They left a lot of stuff out. There's a director's cut and a theatrical cut. The director's cut is really just a darker version of this. Like, it's just basically putting some of the gore back in. Doesn't really necessarily make the film better. So if you weren't somebody who was into the plot of the regular theatrical cut, I don't imagine you're going to be a big fan of the plot of the director's cut. And that plot has always interested me. It's just about a regular guy, who, goes on these very, very dark military missions where he does kill some innocent people, but he's having a change of heart. He might be a cold-blooded killer right now, but that's always what he was supposed to be. But unfortunately, his boy, who's played by Martin Sheen in this movie, turns his back on him, mainly because he has to, but he's also kind of a piece of shit himself. But he turns his back on Michael Jai White, who has never gotten his flowers for the performance he gives in this movie, and I always thought Michael Jai White was a very underappreciated actor. But Martin Sheen turns his back on him. No, you're the dead man, my friend, as he burns him alive, and then it's 5 years later, and, he just all burnt and crispy, and he doesn't know what the hell happens. John Leguizamo tells him, you know what? You've been dead for 5 years now, and it's time that you led the Devil's Army. And that's when we first go to hell, and we see the awful CGI, the worst computer-generated imagery you'll ever see, which is crazy because the director apparently is a special effects genius, as one of the actors in this movie will tell you numerous times in his most recent interview. It might have been cutting edge at the time, the CGI, but it has not held up well. The devil himself, when he's moving his mouth and talking, he's like, "Arr," and then you were hearing the words, but the words never match up at all. It's like PlayStation 1 graphics, which makes sense because the opening credits, the theme song, kind of does sound like a PlayStation 1 game, so I guess they're just really trying to tie it all together. But even the groups of the demons that he's going to be the leader of, like that army, it's just about 6 or 7 of them that they just keep copying and pasting into different groups, just very much of the time. But it just looks really, really bad. It's the same thing with Spawn's cape when he eventually becomes that superhero Spawn, and, he's going to get his revenge, which is what they're banking on, is him getting the revenge so that this big plot can come into play where the world is going to be poisoned to death, and then the devil can come up and take over all over again. But John Leguizamo, who plays the Violator in this movie, who is great, by the way. John Leguizamo gives the most committed performance out of everybody. Like I said, Michael Jai White gives a very good performance, but John Leguizamo, everything he's saying is hysterical, and he's scary. He's a scary-looking clown. And it actually, when I was watching it last night for the first time, Michael Jai White is in The Dark Knight, and he has a line. I think it might even be his only line in the movie. No, it's not the only line in the movie, but the one that always stands out is like,
"Enough from the clown."
Let's not blow.
Do you think that was put in there as like a little bit of a love letter to Spawn back in the day? Because like I said, there's a few of us who are in the cult army that likes the movie Spawn. Probably because, you guys know me pretty well by now. I love me some cheese, and this is a very, very cheesy 90s movie. Yes, that CGI is awful, but I do think it's part of the movie's charm. His cape is a very big deal. It's a very big part of his character. It plays a big part in the movie. It looks awful the entire time. You know, even the scenes where we're getting him like learning about his character, learning about himself, it's very rushed, and that's something that it does bother me. It does bother me a little bit that we have to rush through this movie, and it comes in under 2 hours. If this came out now, which is why a lot of people have been asking for a Spawn reboot, just because a lot of us just truly love the character of Spawn, and we can see the flaws in this movie. There are plenty of them. But I do think that it's also very redeemable because it's still interesting. It's very entertaining throughout the entire film, even as bad as it can be at points with some bad acting and some very bad dialogue. I still think it's a very entertaining film. That's something that is very important. It's never boring throughout. John Leguizamo is somebody you can never take your eyes off of.
Funny, he's our man. If you can't kill him, no one can. S to the P to the A to the war. S to the P to the A to the R. Funny.
Like, the whole freaking thing is absolutely ridiculous, but you love it. Like, that's, you know, you could say, like, the tone is a little uneven, which I get it, you know, between the comedy, the horror. I understand that. I agree with you guys. It's just that there's certain elements to this movie that I have always loved. I had a lot of Spawn toys growing up, so there is a lot of nostalgic value built up for me with this film, but I still would like to see a reboot, like, with modern comic book films. Not modern MCU films, but, like, you know, something with a true dark tone, maybe like the Batman, like the way this film was supposed to come out all those years ago. It's just that the world wasn't ready for a superhero film like Spawn. And Spawn itself never really truly got its flowers. When the Black Panther came out a few years ago, they brought up basically how the Black Panther was the first black comic book film that's really being brought to the big screen, and that's just not true. I know that Spawn was shit on back in the day for being awful. I understand that, but we also got Blade back in 1998, which is also a great superhero film that I don't want to get overlooked just because, you know, it's been so long, and the 1990s, as far as like the superhero culture goes, was really at a low in films. I don't know how it actually was for comic books in stores, but films, yeah, we weren't really getting any good ones. It wasn't until the early 2000s with X-Men and Spider-Man that people started to realize that there's a lot of money in this, and we could also put out really quality films. It just doesn't feel like everybody was fully on board with making Spawn the great film that it could have been, but there's still a lot in there to love. I know a lot of us out there still love this movie, and I know there's a lot of people that truly hate this movie. But if you are somebody like me who loves this movie, then I'm sure you're very interested in what this Arrow Video 4K Blu-ray turned out like. Well, here it is, Spawn on 4K Blu-ray from Arrow Video. It comes in a regular slipcover version. I believe you could also buy it on Blu-ray. There are 2 4K Blu-rays packed in here. No Blu-ray discs. This one just has the theatrical cut and the director's cut on 4K Blu-ray. If you look at it, it doesn't come in that morbidly obese box like we would like, but it is Spawn, so I understand that. And this is because of that deal that Arrow Video has with New Line Cinema, which is owned by Warner Brothers. So those Warner Brothers films like The Mask, TMNT, that trilogy of movies, the reason why we're getting those on 4K Blu-ray coming up is because of that deal with WB. And thankfully we got that, because Spawn, like I said in the film review, not the most beloved film, but there is a little bit of a cult out there, a cult that I am very proud to be a part of, because I do really enjoy this film, and I do think it deserves its flowers for certain elements of it. But when you come underneath the slipcover, which is really nice, I already reversed the artwork, which you can do, so you can have it look like this, or you can have the original movie poster. When you come inside, there is some reading material right here and a poster, which they packed in nicely. Like I said, it's a 2-disc set. This disc right here is the director's cut, while this disc is the theatrical cut. So I chose to watch the director's cut, and on that director's cut, that's where you will find all of the special features. There are no special features that are on the regular theatrical cut, so when you go to that, you'll just have the options of play film and the setup. And the setup, you're going to notice that there's 2 audio tracks, a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 and a DTS HD Master Audio 2.0, and that is it. And from what I understand, those are the exact same audio track that are on the previously released Blu-ray, which is going to be unfortunate for some people, but after playing that audio track, it is pretty good, is the best way I would describe them both. I do feel like there's some issues where certain elements will become too high, and you'll have to, like turn the volume down really fast, which is one of the worst sins that an audio track can do, because if you're just sitting there, you have it set on a volume, everything's coming in crisp and clear, clear, the dialogue's clear, everything's coming in nice, and you don't have to worry about waking your wife up sleeping next to you, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're in an action sequence, and now everything's going off, all these explosions, and your wife wakes up and she's pissed off at you, and it's because the audio track itself isn't mixed the greatest. And that's the one thing I have to say about this, despite the fact they're making great use of all the channels if you're watching the 5.1, which I really appreciate. You know, this is one where I could say, you know, I would have liked a Dolby Atmos upgrade, but it doesn't necessarily 100% need it. I could see that, you know, this isn't Arrow Video's, like, you know, one of their crown jewel releases. Like I said, it didn't get the Morbidly Obese box, it just got the slipcover. So I would say this is like one where they would put in their like B releases, so maybe they didn't want to spend the extra money and give it a new Atmos track, but the DTS track that is on here is fine. And how about those extras? Arrow Video always giving us brand new extras. There's like 5 new interviews on here. One of them with Michael Jai White, Spawn himself, which was absolutely awesome. I learned a lot of stuff I never expected. He was very proud to be cast as Spawn. Just like RoboCop, though, he absolutely hated being in the suit. Told some great stories about Martin Sheen and John Leguizamo. They didn't get Martin Sheen or John Leguizamo to do interviews, so you can clearly tell like everybody they did get to do interviews were speaking very highly of those people. They didn't get an interview with the director as well. So, you know, in the second part where they're talking about some of the supporting actors, and they have, I think his name is DB Sweeney on there, he's talking about his relationship with the director. Like, very interesting stuff. It's just, you know, it probably costs a lot of money to get a guy like John Leguizamo to come in here and do an interview, but it would have been cool because, like I said in the film review, he gives a very standout performance as the Violator, so it would have been cool to see what he was thinking. But you do learn a lot from Michael Jai White, learn a lot about the suit itself, a lot about the special effects, about the music of the film. So if you're a fan of the movie, they gave us plenty of new stuff, and of course they gave us all the archival stuff. That's where you'll find the old making of, an old interview with Todd McFarlane, because he also didn't do a new interview. But they gave us pretty much everything you could ever want if you're a Spawn fan, which I really appreciated. The only thing I could ever ask for, just like what Dark City got from Arrow Video earlier this year, is a brand new making of documentary. I would have truly loved that, but as I said earlier, it is Spawn, so I do understand. So either way, or great extras on there, and I love that Arrow Video gives us brand new extras, doesn't just recycle it, so they put the effort in there. And then the visuals, well, you're going to get Dolby Vision and HDR10. Both of them look very similar to each other, and both of them look fantastic. Right in line with Arrow Video's recent releases on 4K Blu-ray, where I've said in the past that their 4K transfers are some of the best out there. Look what they did with the Dollars trilogy, and yet again, they gave us another beautiful transfer to the point where Spawn has never, ever looked this good. Not even close. The movie itself actually looks beautiful. Will it cover up for the awful CGI? No, it's going to make that bad CGI look even worse, unfortunately. But that's to be expected. Look at the core on 4K Blu-ray. You just can't make that CGI look any better. It's just, we didn't know better at the time. We thought it was cutting edge. All these years later, we're like, well, it looks like absolute shit. And it's always going to look like absolute shit unless they redo the CGI completely, which is something that they are absolutely never going to do. So this is what we got. But, you know, they filmed this stuff on sets, on location, so stuff does look beautiful because it's not all CGI. It's not a complete CGI movie. So, you know, when the CGI comes in, it might look pretty bad. But as far as the visuals go, it's, you know, taken from the 35mm camera negative, so we do get some film grain in there. The HDR is doing a great job. This isn't like the most colorful movie, but when colors do get involved, like the bright greens, or like sometimes someone's walking around in the rain and you'll notice a pink jacket that you've never noticed before, but because of this brand new 4K Blu-ray transfer, that stuff now stands out to you. So they did a phenomenal job on the visuals here. The visuals maybe don't quite hit 10 out of 10, but probably like a 9 out of 10. So if you combine those great visuals with, you know, great new extras and audio that is recycled, but still, it's pretty damn good, I would say that this is a very solid release from Arrow Video. Maybe not something on their A+ tier, but maybe right down there in that A tier, A-, maybe even B tier. If I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I will give Spawn from Arrow Video on 4K Blu-ray a pretty damn solid 8.5 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to help support the channel, we have a Friends of the Channel tier, a Producers tier, where you'll find John Doe Juggalo, Ben Rondo, and Harvey Scott. Or you can even pump it up to the channel Directors tier, where you're going to find Stone Gas Man, Nicholas Head, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, Uncle V, and Kevin Kruger. Or you can even bump it up to the channel Bankroll members, where you'll find Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you got no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.